What's the hubbub? Let's get into it. The new Lanterns trailer just revealed something I don't think enough people are talking about. It isn't just introducing Green Lantern, it may have revealed how James Gunn plans to build the entire cosmic side of the DC universe. And oddly enough, the blueprint looks a lot like Men in Black. Now, that might sound like a strange comparison, but by the end of this video, I think you'll see why this could be one of the smartest storytelling decisions DC has made in years. The reason is simple. The Green Lantern Corps has always been more than just superheroes. In the comics, they're essentially intergalactic police officers. They're investigating crimes, protecting entire sectors of space, and dealing with threats that most of the universe doesn't even know exist. That's exactly what made Men in Black so fun. It took a secret world full of aliens and explored it through the eyes of a veteran agent and a newcomer learning the job. And that's exactly the type of dynamic Lanterns appears to be building. You have Hal Jordan, the experienced Lantern who's seen it all, paired with John Stewart, the talented young recruit, learning how to become one of the Corps' greatest heroes. That mentor and rookie relationship gives the audience someone to learn alongside, while Hal naturally introduces John and us to the larger Green Lantern mythology. And here's the part I think people are missing. This isn't just about having an older hero and a younger hero together. It's about creating the perfect entry point into one of DC's biggest and most complicated mythologies. Instead of dumping decades of Green Lantern lore on viewers all at once, the show can reveal everything piece by piece as John discovers it. That's a storytelling approach that has worked countless times before. Think about Men in Black, where Agent J learns about the hidden alien world from Agent K, or the original Star Wars, where Luke and the audience discover the Force through Kenobi. Even in the Green Lantern comics, new Lanterns often learn about the Corps, the Guardians, and the responsibilities of the Ring through experienced mentors. That's why this approach makes so much sense. Hal Jordan is the seasoned veteran. John Stewart is the talented rookie. Together, they're investigating a mystery that gradually introduces viewers to the larger Green Lantern universe, and that matters because the Green Lantern mythology can be intimidating. There are decades of stories, alien worlds, different Lantern Corps, cosmic threats, and characters that casual audiences may not know. A good adaptation doesn't overwhelm people with all of that immediately. It invites them in. The trailer also emphasizes what makes the Green Lantern Corps unique in the comics. They're not just superheroes, they're intergalactic law enforcement. Instead of non-stop action, we see investigations, tension, and hints of a larger conspiracy involving characters like Sinestro and the Manhunters. But here's where things get even smarter. The trailer doesn't appear to be adapting one single comic storyline. Instead, it looks like it's pulling from the best parts of Green Lantern history. We already see elements like the Green Lantern Corps acting as cosmic law enforcement, Hal Jordan's legendary status, John Stewart's early journey, Sinestro's looming presence, and even the mysterious Manhunters. Rather than rushing into the biggest comic events immediately, Lanterns has the opportunity to build toward them naturally. Storylines like Sinestro Corps War, Blackest Night, and the emotional spectrum don't have to happen overnight. They can be earned as John grows into the role and the audience learns the universe alongside him. And that's why the Men in Black comparison is so exciting. It's not just about copying another franchise, it's about using a proven storytelling structure that makes a massive comic book universe feel accessible without losing what longtime fans love. Because if the trailer delivers on its promise, Lanterns isn't just adapting Green Lantern, it's introducing audiences to the entire cosmic side of DC in a way that feels grounded, mysterious, and earned. And that's only half the story, because this series could also become one of the most important pieces of the future DC universe. The DCU isn't being built as isolated projects. It looks like it's laying the groundwork for a larger connected universe. Rumors and reports have pointed to John Stewart playing a major role going forward, with many fans expecting him to become an important part of a future Man of Tomorrow film alongside Superman. If that's the direction DC takes, then Lanterns isn't just telling a standalone story. It's introducing one of the universe's biggest heroes before he joins the larger narrative, and that's exactly how comic universes thrive. You establish characters in their own corners of the world before bringing them together for bigger events. When Jon Stewart eventually crosses paths with Superman or other heroes, audiences already know who he is and why he matters instead of meeting him for the first time in a crossover. Now, speaking of online reactions, this is where the conversation around DC gets interesting. One of the stranger reactions to the new DC slate is seeing some SnyderVerse fans rooting for Lanterns and Clayface to fail. But if your goal is bringing Zack Snyder back to DC, that probably isn't the strategy that helps make that happen. The reality is that Lanterns and Clayface look like exactly the kinds of projects that can expand DC beyond just traditional superhero blockbusters. Lanterns appears to be a grounded sci-fi detective series with a Men in Black-style mentor and rookie dynamic. Meanwhile, Clayface is shaping up to be more of a psychological horror story than a traditional comic book movie, and that's a strength, not a weakness. One of the biggest criticisms DC has faced over the years is that too many projects felt like they were chasing the same formula. James Gunn's approach seems to be giving each character a genre that fits them. Batman can be a detective vigilante, Green Lantern can be a sci-fi detective mystery, Clayface can be psychological horror. That's how the comics have worked for decades. Different characters succeed because they offer different experiences, and here's where things get even more important. Even if you're a huge SnyderVerse supporter, hoping these projects fail doesn't really create a path back. Studios don't usually respond to failure by reviving an entirely different continuity. More often, repeated failures lead to smaller budgets, cancelled projects, leadership changes, or another reboot. A struggling DC doesn't automatically mean a SnyderVerse return. It could simply mean fewer DC projects getting made. The internet has turned DC discussion into a ridiculous soap opera meets political drama, and we're all watching it happen. As usual, both sides share the responsibility of it becoming this, and nobody is giving ground. The SnyderVerse against DCU debate is basically playing out like a fictional Cold War. Snyder fans are the revolutionaries demanding the old regime return, Gunn fans are defending the new government, and casual fans are just sitting there like, guys, can we please just enjoy a new Lanterns show? I mean, damn, my favorite Green Lantern is Jon Stewart, not Hal Jordan. I said it. If I'm being real and objective, I tend to think it's completely fair to prefer Zack Snyder's interpretation of DC or wish his story had continued. Plenty of fans loved Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, or Zack Snyder's Justice League, and would like to see that universe revisited someday. There's nothing wrong with that. Here is the issue the cult fan is guilty of. Again, this isn't all Snyder fans either. It's the weird cult worshipper portion. Rooting against every new DC project isn't the same thing as supporting the SnyderVerse. Those are two different goals. You are basically wanting DC characters to have failed projects. Calling yourself a DC fan then just doesn't track, and I'm revoking that fan card, Snyder Bros. If Lanterns, Clayface, and the rest of the DCU succeed, DC builds momentum, and momentum creates opportunities for more ambitious stories, bigger crossovers, and characters like Jon Stewart becoming major players in the future. Whether you're a fan of Snyder's vision or Gunn's vision, that's ultimately a win for DC fans. Now, speaking of online reactions, there's another thing that keeps happening with every new DC project. Every conversation somehow turns into another SnyderVerse argument. Which, by the way, if you like the DCU versus DCEU SnyderVerse debate, we cover that on the Hubbub regularly, so please subscribe. So somehow every DC trailer now comes with a mandatory side quest. Find out why this proves the SnyderVerse was right all along. Apparently the real DC villain isn't Darkseid, it's the YouTube algorithm, and that's why it's worth separating what these projects actually are from the narratives that form around them before audiences even get a chance to see them. To be clear, this isn't about attacking everyone who enjoyed Zack Snyder's movies. A lot of fans loved Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Some still hope that universe gets revisited someday. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is, when every new DC announcement gets judged against the SnyderVerse before the project has even been released. Some projects haven't even finished their trailers before certain corners of the internet already have the thumbnail ready saying DC, it's dead again. Then they make a slop video lying that Zack Snyder is already back, really, this time, just missing things like a deal and DC contract for new movies. At this point, I think some channels have the funeral livestream scheduled before opening night on any new James Gunn-related DCU work. Some creators frame every new DCU project as evidence that the universe is doomed before audiences have had a chance to watch it. Rather than repeating those talking points, it's worth looking at what the trailers actually show, who is making these projects, and what comic history they're pulling from. The funny thing about online outrage is that some people spend more time watching DC projects they claim to hate than the fans who actually enjoy them. The hate watch has basically become a subscription service. The goal isn't to attack Zack Snyder or people who enjoyed his work. The goal is to separate legitimate criticism from misinformation and judge these projects based on what they actually are. Because the reality is that Lanterns and Clayface are trying something different. Lanterns looks like a grounded sci-fi detective story inspired by the way Green Lantern comics treat the Corps as intergalactic law enforcement. Clayface appears to embrace psychological horror, which is another genre that has existed in DC Comics for decades. And if those projects succeed, that's good for DC as a whole. But if they don't succeed, it doesn't automatically bring the SnyderVerse back. Historically, studios don't respond to unsuccessful reboots by restoring an old continuity. More often, they reduce investment, delay projects, or eventually try something completely different. So when this channel discusses the SnyderVerse versus the new DCU, it's not because we're trying to keep an old debate alive, it's because that debate is already influencing how new DC projects are discussed online. And it's worth adding context, fact-checking claims, and judging these movies and shows based on what they actually are, not what people hoped they would be. At the end of the day, every DC fan wants compelling stories. Some people talk about restoring the SnyderVerse like it's a hidden unlockable character. Enter the cheat code, beat the final boss, and Zack Snyder returns. Unfortunately, Hollywood doesn't work like a video game. Whether your favorite version is Snyder's DCEU, James Gunn's DCU, or another interpretation entirely, the characters are bigger than any one filmmaker. The healthiest future for DC is one where great stories succeed on their own merits, and fans debate them based on what ends up on screen. And speaking of success, that leads into another conversation that gets misunderstood all the time. The idea that Marvel succeeding somehow hurts DC. The funny thing is, when some SnyderVerse fans say Marvel is going to win the box office as if that somehow damages the DCU, it doesn't. If anything, history shows the opposite. Marvel was dominating the box office during the superhero boom too. Back in 2013, Man of Steel finished with a little over $600 million worldwide, while that same year, an Iron Man sequel earned nearly $1.3 billion, and that didn't stop DC from continuing. It didn't mean audiences suddenly stopped caring about DC characters. It simply meant Marvel had found success with its approach, and DC had to find its own path. Something the SnyderVerse couldn't do. As DC fans, we should actually want major Marvel movies to succeed. Not because you have to love every Marvel project, not because you can't criticize them when they miss the mark, but because the biggest competitors in the superhero genre succeeding proves that audiences still want superhero stories. We don't want it going the way of westerns, all but forgotten in modern-day cinema. They want event movies, and that's what the DCU is working towards. That has to be earned, though. The MCU is nearly 20 years in. Every time a Marvel movie does well, it just adds a little hype back into a genre that has declined. The tentpole characters are what can bring it back. Gunn hasn't had a chance, though, to have tentpole-level movies for the DCU, as we are only a couple of releases in. The expectations aren't to compete with Marvel, at least yet. Audiences still show up when they're excited about a project. That's why rooting for either studio to fail doesn't make much sense. so I'll happily attend Spider-Man and the next Avengers movies. If DC follows through with a great Lanterns series or a successful Superman sequel, that's good for the genre too. Success creates momentum. It gives studios confidence to invest in bigger stories, take creative risks, and give more comic book characters opportunities on screen. Think about it this way. Superhero movies are the tentpole attractions for comic book storytelling in Hollywood. When those tentpoles are strong, the entire genre benefits. Studios see that audiences are engaged, investors have confidence, and more characters get opportunities to make the jump from comics to the screen. Smart comic book fans don't root for Marvel or DC to lose, they root for both to keep raising the bar. Healthy competition is what gave us some of the best years of comic book movies in the first place. The Nolan Batman trilogy and the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy are still some of the best in the genre to many fans even today. When Marvel releases a hit, DC has to respond with something equally compelling. When DC finds success, Marvel has to innovate. I actually believe with Superman 2025 beating all 3 Marvel movies, it was a wake-up call witnessing James Gunn have success on his first movie for the DCU. Marvel then had to game plan stronger. By the way, in recent news, it was just announced at San Diego Comic-Con, Marvel Studios is bringing Ghost Rider to the MCU, with Ryan Gosling in the lead. Black Panther 3 is officially set to release on December 15, 2028, and David Johnson has been announced as the new Black Panther, playing the son of the original Marvel Cinematic version, played by Chadwick Boseman, who died so young, unfortunately. I think it's a great move to continue the legacy. Let me know in the comments what you think about this news. Please subscribe too. Fans win because both studios are pushed to make better movies and shows. At the end of the day, this channel isn't about picking sides between Marvel and DC. It isn't about picking sides between the SnyderVerse and the DCU either. Yes, these conversations are a niche that can bring more attention to a smaller channel. And let's be honest, the internet has discovered that nothing moves faster than a thumbnail with a red arrow, a shocked face, and the words, "Gunn destroys DC." The algorithm sees that and starts doing push-ups. That's part of the reality of covering comic book discussions online. But the goal here isn't to create endless arguments. The goal is to celebrate great comic book storytelling, call out misinformation when we see it, and hope every project, whether it's Fantastic Four, Lanterns, Clayface, or Man of Tomorrow, is as good as it can possibly be. Because when comic book adaptations succeed, everybody who loves these characters wins. And that's why the Lanterns trailer is so interesting. The best case scenario isn't one side defeating the other. The best case scenario is getting more great stories. If this series delivers on its promise, Lanterns could become the project that finally introduces mainstream audiences to the cosmic side of DC in the right way. A mystery, a mentor and rookie relationship, a massive universe waiting to be explored. That was always the potential of Green Lantern. With that, it's today's hubbub. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Do you think the Men in Black comparison fits Lanterns, or do you think the series is going in a completely different direction? Maybe the real neuralizer we need isn't for aliens, it's for fans who need to forget every DC argument from the last 5 years and just watch the next movie. Savvy. I always enjoy seeing the discussions and civil debates that happen in this community. But still, say it with me. No SnyderVerse. No problem.
The difference is between you and me, I make this look good.
Here come the men in black. They won't let you relax.